We'll get through it because we got a lot of great games on deck this weekend because the playoffs, they get underway. Let's start with one that I'm definitely keeping an eye on, and that is the Lions taking on the Bucs here. Joshua, what are the keys in this one?
Yeah, I think biggest key for the Lions and really for the Bucs there is Baker Mayfield and his ability to navigate the pocket. I think if Baker Mayfield has to navigate pockets that are consistently cloudy, it takes away his ability to hit some big plays down the field. We understand that Detroit on the defensive side of the ball is not quite there yet. There are yards to be had against the Detroit defense. I love the way they played in the red zone against the Rams, but in the field, they were giving it up. So the idea is when you have a pass rusher like Aiden Hutchinson, I don't even need you to really hit the quarterback all the time. I just need you to make it so he cannot let the routes develop downfield and he's in panic mode right away. And if they can do that with consistency, I think the Lions can have success. On the flip side, if Baker gets time to be in the pocket and to go through his read progression, probably giving up some yards there for the Lions.
Yeah, I'm with you. Who turns the football over, right? Because you have two guys. Baker's been balling, and it's actually been really nice to see him find a home down there in Tampa when he was really looked at as a stopgap with Kyle Trask down there when the year started. But he is a guy, as you mentioned, if he's off his spot, can turn the football over. I look at Jared Goff, who has been playing good football, but Jared Goff is a guy that occasionally can get a little loose with the football, put the ball on the ground. Joshua, I know you hate that.
Yeah, I do.
Or give the ball to the other team. The team that has the fewest turnovers wins this game, right? I know that's easy to say, but when you have two offenses that could potentially be explosive, but also two offenses where if one thing is off, it could be a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, one thing I'm keeping an eye on, too, is with the Lions, just the mental, from the mental side, is just how are they going to respond after coming off this emotional high, after, getting their first playoff win there, beating the Rams, going up against Matthew Stafford here, compartmentalize and then put that away and then focus on this next game and understand that the job, it's not over yet. So that's something that I'm really focusing on. But going back to the Bucs here, you give us some credit to Baker Mayfield, and he was making it look easy in that last matchup. But how much credit can you give to this receiving core and what they are able to do?
A lot of credit there. They've got some playmakers on the outside, no doubt. The one thing that they need to change from this last game is Mike Evans on some of those deep passes couldn't reel them in, right? Hit him on the fingertips, wasn't able to hold on to him. Those are plays I don't think you can give up, let go away against a team like the Lions, who's been playing pretty good football all year long. You have to capitalize on those, but they got dudes who can get open. They got a really nice wide receiver group.
All right, well, it's going to be a tough challenge. The Lions, they are hosting this one. We know how well they play at home, and they're the 6.5-point favorites right now, but, that's a game that we're keeping an eye on as well. This is probably one of the most exciting games every single season. We got the Bills. They're taking on the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes, he is on the road for the first time in the postseason. So how much is that going to play a factor, JP?
It's going to be a big factor. I think being on the road for him, and although, he played neutral site in the Super Bowl, we've seen him do that numerous times, going to a place like Buffalo. We know the weather's one thing, but the crowd is the other thing. He's going to have to be able to handle it. He's a veteran quarterback. He's highly paid. He should be able to navigate that. As I look at keys in this one, I'm looking at these offenses, and I think whichever offense makes the least amount of mistakes win this football game. Again, it's another one of those cliche type things, but I think these are two offenses that have been predisposed to making mistakes this year. We talked about Josh Allen. We've talked about turnovers, whether it's interceptions or it's fumbles. He cannot do that in a game of this magnitude. We talk about Patrick Mahomes and how his connection hasn't always looked great with his wide receiver weapons, whether they're dropping the football or they're just not on the same page. Travis Kelce has been up and down. He's going to have to play his best game. But the reason I go that way, too, is I think that these are two defenses for a majority of the year that have held up their end of the bargain. I think that they've played pretty well. We talked about Kansas City. It's a defense that has been very consistent that I don't think gets enough credit because everybody wants to talk about the offensive weapons. And for Buffalo, I think their defense is really rounding into form, too. A big reason why I think they were able to pull off some wins there late in the year. And so when you're going up against defenses that are clicking, offenses have to be much more efficient.
It's interesting that even after the seasons that both these teams had, we're back to KC against Buffalo. And I think it's been Buffalo that's always, come up on the short end to the Chiefs. Maybe this is the year that they didn't have their best year, didn't have their best showing offensively. Stephon Diggs didn't have the breakout year that we always see from him, yet they can do enough to defeat this Chiefs team at this specific season. I look at the Chiefs, and it's something we've talked about all year long. I just don't have the most confidence in them as we've had in years past. then I look at the Buffalo Bills where it's just like, well, what version of the Bills you get from week to week? If I had to bet on one, I'd be more likely to bet on the team that from week to week you never know, as opposed to this Chiefs team where it just feels like something's been off.
I mean, the last, portion of the season, too, on a week-to-week basis, we know exactly what the Bills are. It's a team that's playing winning football, right? And I think that gives you more confidence in the Bills and what the Chiefs have done as a totality this season.
But I think one thing we've learned about Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team, you can't underestimate them. You can't count them out despite their struggles throughout the season. They know how to get things together in the playoffs. And so they're going to put up a fight there. It's going to be a good one there in Buffalo. But another one to keep an eye on is we have the Packers, a team that we didn't think that we'd be talking this deep into the playoffs here. They're going up against a giant in the 49ers, likely a Super Bowl favorite here. So how can the Packers make something of this one?
I think they got to force Brock Purdy to throw it into tight spaces. One thing I talk about with Brock Purdy all the time, and I think it's a marvel that they can continue to do this, but he is an anticipation thrower that believes that there are going to be voids in the secondary of the defense, and he'll put the ball in that soft spot for his wide receiver to get. So if you're Green Bay and you understand that is the best way that he operates, you have to play tight coverage. And it's tough when you want to say that you're going to play matchup zones or man-to-man a ton when you feel like you've got dangerous weapons on the other side. But for the quarterback, makes him have to work with precision. It takes the timing element out of it to a certain degree because he's not going to be able to anticipate a guy coming scot-free. I think that's shout out to Scott. I think that is something that has to be a big part of this game plan, affecting Brock Purdy, who has been extremely efficient this year, but the offense gets it done a very specific way.
I'm with you, but for me, it's you have to let anybody but Christian McCaffrey beat you, right? If Deebo Samuel has a big game, hey, tip your cap. If George Kittle has one of those games that we know he can have, tip your cap. But I'll be damned if I'm Matt LaFleur and the Packers and saying that CMC is the reason we don't move on and advance. He's so good. I know it's easier said than done with what he can do in the running game and in the pass game, but you got to let somebody else outside of Christian McCaffrey, the best player in the NFL offensively this year, beat you.
Yeah, and I mean, the Packers, this is a team, they could be that dark horse, right? That could take took down the Cowboys. They could take down the other giant here. You know, sometimes it's like you just see a team that's just clicking at the right time. This could be that team.
That was a good defense they carved up, too, right? Like, I know everybody's like, oh, well, this and that. They were easily getting up and down the field.
They sure were.
And the score was not as close as it was when the final horn sound. So
a lot of empty cows in that game.
Yes.